Once I had the concept of the painting in front of me, I started with a simple B2 pencil and a blank sheet of paper. First, I outlined the general tilt of the head a slight diagonal to immediately establish dynamism. I defined the oval of the face, elongating it slightly downwards to emphasize the gracefulness of the neck. I drew a central line of symmetry and horizontal guidelines for the eyes and lips. It was important to me to maintain the distinctive gaze, slightly narrowed, confident. Next, I used soft lines to define the shape of the hair, a shortcut with jagged strands. I didn't draw every detail, but rather outlined the general direction of the hair's movement. Then I refined the shape of the lips, emphasizing their volume. I used an eraser to lighten the highlights on the bridge of the nose, cheekbones, and lower lip. I drew the neck and shoulders with simple lines, adding jewelry, but without excessive detail. The sketch turned out lively, with a slight casualness. I left room for color. Once the sketch was complete, I moved on to color. I worked with acrylic paint and used 3 brushes, a large one for the background and large surfaces, a medium one for the shape and clothing, and a thin one for lines and details. First, I covered the background. Using a large brush, I applied a rich red color to the top and purple to the bottom. I didn't blend them completely, I wanted a vibrant contrast. My movements were free, leaving brushstroke traces here and there. The background was meant to create tension and enhance the image. Red adds passion and purple adds depth. Using a medium brush, I covered the t-shirt with a light gray color. I didn't want it to distract from the face, so I chose a neutral tone. I left subtle transitions and added a little shadow under the chest and along the folds. I carefully outlined the contours with a thin black brush. This enhanced the graphic quality. The hair is the most emotional element. I used bright red acrylic paint as a base. I applied it with a medium brush, leaving gaps. Then, using a thin brush, I added jagged black strokes. They create a sense of movement and inner energy. The hair looks like it's on fire. I wanted them to contrast with the skin and literally jump out of the background. I intentionally made the skin an unnatural, bright yellow shade. This was an artistic decision. I wasn't aiming for realism. I covered the main planes with a large brush, then added light shadows under the cheekbones, near the nose, and under the lower lip with a medium brush. I used a thin brush to draw the eyes, eyelashes, and eyebrows. I made the lips a rich red, adding lines to emphasize the shape. It was important to maintain the expressive gaze. The green eyes became the accent. I worked on the jewelry with a thin brush. I added shadows and small highlights to give volume. I reinforced the outline across the entire figure. With black, this gave the work a comic book or pop art style. Finally, I went over the highlights on the skin with a nearly dry brush to create a subtle glow. Critical assessment. The result? Very strong color contrast. Expressive gaze. It holds attention. The hair conveys movement and character. A clear, graphic outline makes the work memorable. What could be improved? Add more light and shadow on the face. The shape is a bit flat now. The jewelry could be detailed with highlights and shadows for greater volume. The shoulder area could be softer. The background could be slightly more complex, with texture or additional shades. What could be added? A slight cool reflection on the skin from the purple background. Highlights in the eyes for greater depth. More complex transitions in the hair, a touch of orange or burgundy. The work is close to pop art, with elements of comic book graphics and a bit of expressive neo-Fauvism due to the bright, unnatural colors. This painting might appeal to lovers of bright interior accents, a younger audience, those who appreciate bold color schemes, people who enjoy contemporary decorative art. The image is strong, bold, and full of character. This is not realism. It is emotion and energy.